still wet and dirty from the storm-soaked fields, disheveled from his battle across the plain in the chaotic winds. "I want to see you, Miss Moulton," he said. "There's something funny I think you ought to know." "Of course," said Jill, and met her father's eyes. "I think we'll see, now, which one of us is right." The barracks were quiet, except for the mutter of distant thunder and the heavy breathing of exhausted men. Tom Ward crouched in the darkness by Mel Gray's bunk. "You ain't going to go soft at the last minute, are you?" he whispered. "Because I can't afford to take chances." "Don't worry," Gray returned. "What's your proposition?" "I can give you the combination lock of the hangar passage. All you have to do is get into Moulton's office, where the passage door is, and go to it. The ship's a two-seater. You can get her out of the valley easy." Gray's eyes narrowed in the dark. "What's the catch?" "There ain't none. I swear it. Look, Ward, I'm no fool. Who's behind this, and why?" "That don't make no difference. All you want Oh!" Gray's fingers fastened like steel claws on his wrist. "I get it now," Gray said slowly. "That's why I was sent here. Somebody wanted me to make trouble for Moulton." His fingers tightened agonizingly. His voice sank to a slow drawl. "I don't like being a pawn in somebody else's chess game." "Okay. It ain't my fault. Let me go." Ward rubbed his bruised wrist. "Sure, somebody, I ain't sayin' who, sent you here, knowin' you'd want to escape. I'm here to help you. You get free, I get paid, the big boy gets what he wants, okay?" Gray was silent, scowling in the darkness. Then he said, "All right, I'll take a chance." "Then listen. You tell Moulton you have a complaint. I'll " Light flooded the dark as the door clanged open. Ward leapt like a startled rabbit, but the light speared him, held him. Ward felt a pulse of excitement beat up in him. The long, ominous shadows of the guards raised elongated guns. The barracks stirred and muttered like a vast aviary waking. "Warden Gray," said one of the guards, "Moulton wants you." Gray rose from his bunk with the lithe, delicate grace of a cat. The monotony of sleep and labor was ended. Something had broken. Life was once again a moving thing. John Moulton sat behind the untidy desk. Dio the Martian sat grimly against the wall. There was a guard beside him, watching. Mel Gray noted all this as he and Ward came in, but his cynical blue eyes went beyond, to the door with the ponderous combination lock. Then they were attracted by something else, the tall, slim figure standing against the black quartz panes of the far wall. It was the first time he had seen Jill Moulton. She looked the perfect, sober apostle of righteousness he'd learned to mock. And then he saw the soft cluster of black curls, the curve of her throat above the dark dress, the red lips that balanced her determined jaw and direct gray eyes. Moulton spoke, his shaggy head hunched between his shoulders. "Dio tells me that you, Gray, are not a volunteer." "Tattletale," Gray said. He was gauging the distance to the hangar door, the positions of the guards, the time it would take to spin out the combination, and he knew he couldn't do it. "What were you and Ward up to when the guards came?" "I couldn't sleep," said Gray amiably, "and he was telling me bedtime stories. Jill Moulton was lovely. He couldn't deny that. Lovely but not soft. She gave him an idea." Moulton's jaw clamped. "Cut the comedy, Gray. Are you working for Caron of Mars?" Caron of Mars, chairman of the board of the Interplanetary Prison Authority. Dio had mentioned him. Gray smiled in understanding. Caron of Mars had sent him, Gray, to Mercury. Caron of Mars was helping him through Ward to escape. Caron of Mars wanted Mercury for his own purposes, and he could have it. "In a manner of speaking, Mr. Moulton," he said gravely, "Caron of Mars is working for me." He caught Ward's sharp hiss of remonstrance. Then Jill Moulton stepped forward. "Perhaps he doesn't understand what he's doing, Father." Her eyes met Gray's. "You do want to escape, don't you?" Gray studied her, grinning as the slow rose flushed her skin. The corners of her mouth tightened with anger. "Go on," he said. "You have a nice voice." Her eyes narrowed, but she held her temper. You must know what that would mean, Gray. There are thousands of veterans in prisons now. Their offenses are mostly trivial, but the prison authority can't let them go because they have no jobs, no homes, no money. The valleys here are fertile. The mines are rich in copper and pitchblende. The men have a chance for a home and a job, a part in building a new world. We hope to make Mercury an independent, self-governing member of the League of Worlds. With the Moultons as rulers, of course, Gray murmured. If they want us, Jill answered, deliberately missing the point. Do you think you have the right to destroy all we've worked for? Gray was silent. Rather grimly, she went on. Caron of Mars would like to see us defeated. He didn't care about Mercury before radium was discovered. But now he'd like to turn it into a prison mining community with convict labor, leasing mine grants to corporations and cleaning up big fortunes for himself and his associates. Any trouble here will give him an excuse to say that we've failed, that the project is a menace to the solar system. If you try to escape, you wreck everything we've done. If you don't tell the truth, you may cost thousands of men their futures. Do you understand? Gray said evenly, I'm my own keeper now. My brother will have to take care of himself. It was ridiculously easy. She was so earnest, so close to him. He had a brief kaleidoscope of impressions: Ward's sullen bewilderment, Moulton's angry roar, Dio's jerky rise to his feet as the guards grabbed for their guns. Then he had his hands around her slim, firm throat, her body pressed close to his, serving as a shield against bullets. Don't be rash, he told them all quietly. I can break her neck quite easily if I have to. Ward, unlock that door. In utter silence, Ward darted over and began to spin the dial. At last he said, Okay, come on. Gray realized that he was sweating. Jill was like warm, rigid marble in his hands, and he had another idea. I'm going to take the girl as a hostage, he announced. If I get safely away, she'll be turned loose, her health and her virtue still intact. Good night. The clang of the heavy door had a comforting sound behind them. The ship was a commercial job, fairly slow but sturdy. Gray strapped Jill Moulton into one of the bucket seats in the control room and then checked the fuel and air gauges. The tanks were full. What about you? He said to Ward. You can't go back. Nah, I'll have to go with you. Warm her up, Duke, while I open the dome. He darted out. Gray set the atmosphere motors idling. The dome slid open, showing the flicker of the auroras, where areas of intense heat and cold set up atmospheric tensions by rapid fluctuation of joining air masses. Mercury, cutting the vast magnetic field of the sun in an eccentric orbit, tortured by daily change from blistering heat to freezing cold in the thin atmosphere, was a powerful generator of electricity. Ward didn't come back. Swearing under his breath, tense for the sound of pursuit in spite of the girl, Gray went to look. Out beyond the hangar, he saw a figure running hard up into the narrow cleft of the valley, where natural galleries in the rock of Mercury led to the places where the copper cables were anchored, and farther, into the unexplored mystery of the caves. Gray scowled, his arrogant Roman profile hard against the flickering aurora. Then he slammed the lock shut. The ship roared out into the tearing winds of the plain. Gray cut his rockets and blasted up into the airless dark among the high peaks. Jill Moulton hadn't moved or spoken. Gray snapped on the space radio, leaving his own screen dark. Presently he picked up signals in a code he didn't know. Listen, he said. I knew there was some reason for Ward's running out on me. His Indianesque face hardened. So that's the game. They want to make trouble for you by letting me escape, and then make themselves heroes by bringing me in, preferably dead. They've got ships waiting to get me as soon as I clear Mercury, and they're getting standby instructions from somebody on the ground, the somebody that Ward was making for. Jill's breath made a small hiss. Somebody's near the project. Gray snapped on his transmitter. Duke Gray, calling all ships off Mercury. Will the flagship of your reception committee please come in? His screen flickered to life. A man's face appeared. The middle-aged, soft-fleshed, almost stickily innocent face of one of the solar system's great